Objective, after listening to this module, you'll be able to describe the model of stress or the stages or process we go through when we encounter stressors. The model of stress. Here are a couple of interesting facts about stress. Stress can result in headaches as a result of the body rerouting blood flow to other parts of the body. Studies show that HIV-infected men are more likely to progress to AIDS if they are under high stress than those with lower levels of stress. Stress makes the blood stickier in preparation for an injury, but this increases the probability of developing a blood clot. Research has shown that dark chocolate reduces stress hormones such as cortisol and other fight-or-flight hormones. In the module Defining Stress, I offered several definitions of stress and provided components of which stress is comprised based on those definitions. Remember, the components of stress are: number 1, a stressor or some sort of demand or pressure or negative situation. Number 2, our perception or thoughts about that stressor. Number 3, an emotional reaction. Number 4, sometimes a behavioral reaction. And number 5, a physiological reaction. These components very closely resemble what's called the model of stress, and helps explain what happens whenever you encounter a stressor. First, you encounter a stressor or a life event: running late, getting stuck in traffic, wanting to confront an idiot boss, giving a presentation in front of a large group of people, losing your car keys, getting into an argument with someone, having to take a very difficult test, not being able to pay your bills, being overweight, or living with another chronic health condition, etc. Thoughts and perceptions. Then your thoughts and perceptions come into play. In other words, a cognitive appraisal is made. Is this stressor bad? And if so, how bad is it? Feelings and emotions. Then you experience feelings and emotions based on those thoughts: anger, irritation, frustration, sadness, despair, etc. Physiological reactions. Then your body reacts to your emotions. It's thought that every single emotion produces a physiological change at the cellular level. Health consequences. Then after so long of feeling stressed, you experience health consequences. Let's go back through each of these components. First, you encounter a stressor, which could be chronic or acute. It could be a one-time acute stressor like giving a huge presentation to a large group of people, or a chronic, reoccurring stressor like being in debt or being in a bad relationship. Thoughts and perceptions. Almost instantaneously, your thoughts about the stressor you just encountered come into play. To illustrate the connection between your thoughts and a particular stressor, what thoughts come into your mind when you hear the word calculus, or another course you had a difficult time with, or some other word with a negative connotation for you? Your thoughts about calculus are probably negative if you had a negative experience with it. Your mind conjures up negative thoughts when you encounter stressors with which you had a negative experience. Feelings and emotions. Immediately after thinking something, you feel it. In other words, how you're feeling results from and is determined by what you're thinking. Have you ever been in a bad mood, but you momentarily forgot why, and then you remembered that you were thinking a minute ago about something that caused you to feel frustrated or angry? Or have you ever had a dream that you were mad at someone and then you still felt mad at him or her even after you woke up? Your thoughts determined your feelings. Feelings and emotions are usually a little more difficult for most people to identify than thoughts. For example, what feelings or emotions did you experience when you heard the word calculus, or whichever word you chose? It might have been relatively easy for you to identify the thought, "I hate calculus," but what emotion did you feel? It might take you less than a second to identify your thought about calculus, but it might take you a little longer to identify your feelings about calculus. People in general are not used to identifying their feelings, so it's no surprise that many people confuse thoughts for feelings. When asked, "How do you feel about calculus?" people will still say, "I feel that I hate calculus." Their feelings about calculus might be anxiety, confusion, or apprehension. Some might say that they don't feel anything, but whether you realize it or not, you did experience an emotion as soon as you thought about the stressor. Off the top of your head, how many different emotions do you think there are? 10, 50, 100? There are approximately over 1,800 different emotions that have been identified. Some people might experience a wider range or a wider variety of emotions, while others are even tempered, meaning they experience a small handful of emotions. But believe it or not, over 1,800 emotions have been identified, and all of them can be tied to your thoughts. Physiological reactions. Let's continue this domino effect. So you encounter a stressor. The stressor determines your thoughts. Your thoughts determine your emotions. Then your emotions determine your physiology. It's thought that every single one of those 1,800 different emotions is capable of causing a physiological reaction at the cellular level to some extent. So these physiological reactions to stress is referred to as the stress response, also known as the fight or flight response, or some say the freeze or faint response. Health consequences. The first 4 stages of the model of stress usually occur in succession very rapidly, almost instantaneously. The final stage of the model of stress, health consequences, occurs over time after weeks or months or sometimes years of experiencing physiological responses associated with stress. Health problems associated with stress are most caused by chronic stress. Key points. The model of stress helps explain what happens when we encounter a stressor. We're confronted with a stressor, our thoughts come into play, then our emotions come into play, then our body comes into play and reacts, and then after so long, our health is affected. And that's it.